Welcome again. Last time we talked about the fact that we are Rome, that there's so many parallels between where we are today in the United States and in Cypress, Texas, and what was going on in Rome in the days in which Paul wrote his letter to the Roman Church. And we tried to draw out a few of those parallels and express how God speaks to us in regard to that. This last week, we talked about some real kind of a dangerous posture that we might initially think is good, and that's kind of when everything's going well and God has his hands off of us and we're allowed to do what we want. And we learned that that's not always as good as it might seem.
But the first question we had is this idea of America's not in a great place right now, we would say morally. Mm-hmm. And so is it our fault or their fault?
Yeah.
As we kind of look at where we're at today.
Well, you said, I want you to say a little bit more because you're kind of giving me a chance to do a soft pitch here.
A slam dunk. And so where I was, as we were looking at this question and kind of as I was processing it and thinking about it, the place I was coming from, and we talked about it a little bit, it's very easy to put the blame and the onus on other people and this vague, it's them out there. Mm-hmm. But in reality, if Christians today lived out our faith the way Jesus did, would America look vastly different? And so it's easy to put the blame on them. It's easy to put the responsibility on them. But as Christians, at times, do we have to look at ourselves and say, the reality of where we're at today is partially because we're not living the way Jesus called us to live?
I love this question, and it's really an important one. Because, as you point out, if we were, things would be different. There's no question about that. And I think that a lot of times we do sort of put the onus on them out there, etc. And we make it something that, well, they just need to clean up their act, they need to figure out how to get better or whatever, and not realizing that we have a responsibility to go to them and have the love of Christ expressed to them. And one of the things I tried to do last Sunday was express the truth of what is right and wrong in terms of issues like homosexuality and abortion and things of that nature that are controversial, but also do that in a way that helped us to understand that we're all culpable and that we all sin and that there's a need that we all have for the grace of God. And hopefully did it in a way that wouldn't just completely drive somebody away. Mm-hmm. Having said that, Paul does say in those words that they are without excuse. Mm-hmm. That he has revealed himself, God has revealed himself to us all, to the whole world, by the mere existence of the world and by our conscience, and that there are certain things we can know about God just by waking up in the morning and looking out at the beautiful creation that we live in. And so while on the one hand, certainly, we all need to repent, we need to redouble our efforts, we need to be more Christ-like, we need to do whatever we can, not to just be judgmental and tell everybody what they're doing wrong, but also to be full of grace and to mediate the love of Christ as well as we possibly can. And yet realize that the truth is also that it's ultimately the responsibility of each of us and each person in the world, those who know Christ and those who do not, to recognize their need for God.
I think part of what we're saying here is we just need to be balancing grace and truth.
Absolutely.
We always want to stand in truth because ultimately we want a God that is truthful, that stands by the law, because a God that doesn't that's scary, and that's not what we see in the Bible.
Yeah.
But we're also, no matter how much I want to judge someone else, I'm a hypocrite in every single day of my life. So I want to share that same grace.
And that's how Paul starts out chapter 2. Yeah. And what about you, oh man, when you try to judge others, you're guilty yourself. So absolutely true. The other thing about that is the blame game is a zero-win game. Nobody wins.
Yeah.
When you play the blame game, not only does the person you're blaming lose because they're put in a bad light, but you also lose because you take yourself out of the area, out of the realm of responsibility for your own actions. And folks, we're responsible for our own actions. We're the ones that have to give an account, not for our neighbor, but for ourselves and how we treated our neighbor. And that's something we need to embrace as well. It's a great question.
So ultimately, when we say, is it our fault or their fault?
The answer is
yes.
That's exactly
right. It's both. And as we always want to stand in truth and grace. So.
And say, Lord, have mercy.
Well, let's do that this week and try to do that every day in our lives. So
good.
Look forward to more questions next week. We'll see y'all tomorrow. We're going to post another video.